So you went and got yourself a law degree. Congratulations, and welcome to the Happy Lawyer Project. I'm your host, Akoma Moronu, and I created this show to teach lawyers how to work in their gifts and live their passions. Together with my guests, we provide the knowledge, insight, skills, inspiration, and encouragement you need to find your happy. In today's interview, I chat with Nicole Abboud, the founder of Abboud Media. Nicole talks about her time in private practice, her short stint in fashion law, and her decision to launch Abboud Media, where she helps lawyers build more valuable relationship with clients through social media and content marketing. She shares her tips for managing your personal brand and using social media in your legal practice. So let's get to the show. Welcome, Nicole. I am so excited to have you on today and share your story with my listeners. How are you?
I'm doing well, and I'm excited to be here too. I'm excited we're finally meeting and kind of speaking in person, or somewhat in person.
Yeah, it's great to finally connect. I usually like to start my show with having my guests tell us briefly how you got to where you are and what you're doing today.
Okay, so it has, how did I get where I am? It's been 5 years in the making, I guess. I actually graduated from law school in 2011.
Oh, we're the same year.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah. I think it's going to be interesting to hear each other's stories and see how we got here. But I actually currently run a company. It's fairly new. It's called Abboud Media. And we help lawyers with their social media management and their content creation, because I love working with lawyers and I feel like lawyers are amazing if only more clients knew about them. So that's what I want to help them with. But backtracking 5 years, graduated from law school 2011, started practicing in family law. That's where I started off. And that's actually what I thought I really wanted to do when I was in law school. So I was really excited I got a position in family law. And about a few months in, I realized, you know what, this is not for me. I hated family law.
What about it exactly was different from what you expected?
It's a good question. It's actually one I get asked pretty often. You know what? I think it was just when you start practicing, it's very different than what you think it's going to be when you're still in law school. Because you're in law school, you're just learning. Maybe you're getting some experience if you extern somewhere. But then when you're actually thrown in and you're representing clients all of a sudden, and you're going to court and you're actually doing all the work that you're supposed to do, it's just different. And looking back, I'm not sure if it was just the initial shock of being a lawyer or that massive learning curve. I don't know if that's what bothered me or if it was family law specifically, but I just was not enjoying it. I just was not happy. I dreaded going into work. It was a bad situation, but I stuck it out, obviously, because I thought, you know, this must be what new lawyers experience. So let me just get through it, get past that first hurdle. And so I stuck it out in family law for about 2.5 years, 3 years. And I kind of threw in some other practice areas in the meantime. I also did a little bit of estate planning and did a little bit of litigation. And then around 2014, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to open my own firm and try to focus on a practice area that I actually really love, which was fashion law. Or at least that's the niche that I really wanted to serve, the industry I really wanted to work with. Yeah.
Did you have any experience or did you just like fashion and want those clients?
You know what? No. So I didn't have experience in fashion law. But here's the thing. Fashion law is ultimately just law. It's a lot of intellectual property, business, contracts, that kind of stuff. So I had some experience there. And growing up, I always just loved the industry because it's just part of my culture. I'm Lebanese. Fashion is very big in Lebanon. So growing up, I was very aware of that industry. And I figured, let me combine the two. Let me bring my knowledge of the law and business to this, what I thought was an underserved industry. And luckily in LA, we have a booming fashion industry. So I thought, you know what, this can't be too hard to get clients. So I opened that practice and started doing that work, got clients. Everything was fine and dandy for a while. And then all of a sudden, those same feelings that I was having in family law started to creep back in. And
pause for 1 second. How did you know how to open your own practice? Like you were, 3 years out at that point?
Yeah. How did I know? You know what? During those 3 years, I started to do a lot of the business side of things for the firm I was working for.
Okay.
So I was updating the website. I was trying to think of new ways to bring in business. And I just learned it all myself. I kind of just I watched YouTube videos. I spoke to people about it. I attended a lot of CLEs that were more business focused than substantive law focused, I suppose. Yeah, and I kind of just picked it up.
Entrepreneurial?
Yeah, somewhat. I mean, growing up, my parents did run a restaurant at one point. They've always had, they've kind of dabbled in different businesses here and there, but yeah.
So you did have examples of people kind of doing it on their own, because I think that can make a big difference.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so now you're in fashion law, you're feeling those creepy crawly feelings that you felt in family law.
Yeah.
And how did you kind of decide it was time to make a transition?
So before I reached that moment where I actually made the decision to transition, I just put up with it, actually. I just kind of, again, thought, you know what, I'm still under 5 years. This must be something young lawyers deal with. And then I thought, well, maybe I'm not the only one. Like maybe there are other people out there, other young lawyers out there who are feeling the same way. So feeling maybe a little bit lost, feeling like they don't belong, or maybe even feeling like this was a mistake. Being a lawyer wasn't necessarily the right decision, which is a scary thought to have, right? After having gone through law school and accumulated all that debt. So I started talking to just my friends and classmates, and kind of getting a feel for what other people are going through. And when I kind of got some validation that it wasn't just me, I thought, let me reach out to people outside of just my circle. Let me see if people across the U.S., young lawyers across the U.S. are experiencing this as well. And let me hear their stories. Let me see how they dealt with it or how they're dealing with it. So that's when I launched the podcast. And I'm sure we'll talk about the podcast later, but that was basically, so launching the podcast and really hearing other young lawyers' stories about how they are either enjoying their practice because they're doing it in a different way, or they made the decision to leave altogether. That gave me the courage to eventually transition to where I am right now. So that podcast was really a key component of what changed in my life.
I think that's so powerful, because I'm the exact same way. And I feel like having those conversations, like you don't have to have a podcast to have those conversations, but having those conversations really change your perspective about what's possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And it just shows you that you're not crazy. You're not the only one who's feeling these. And if you're experiencing something, more than likely someone else is too. So you're not alone. And it's kind of inspiring to see how other people are dealing with it. And it just gives you ideas and gives you a little bit more encouragement.
Yeah. And I think, because I don't know if you felt the same way, but a lot of people who feel stuck, when you ask them like what they want to do, they have all these big ideas. And I think generally lawyers are very passionate people and have these like big dreams, and came to law school kind of full of ambition and passion and drive. And somewhere along the line, they forgot about those things or thought they weren't possible anymore. Because when you ask lawyers, you hear people say, oh, I would do this if I wasn't a lawyer. And I'm like, well, what if you could still do that?
Yeah.
And there's the whole sunk cost problem, and there's the whole not wanting to give up what they put in all this time to. And I try to encourage people to say and instead of or. Like, what if you could be a lawyer and serve this community? What if you could be a lawyer and do this on the side? Or, it's just really interesting, because I think it's so sad to see so many lawyers who are such passionate people kind of stifle that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny, because I've given this some thought, and it's really a lot of things that are at play when it comes to why lawyers don't necessarily, why they stay in the law even if they're not excited, or why they don't pursue their passions, or whatever cliche phrase you want to throw out there. But I mean, obviously the debt is a big thing, right? So you're right. A lot of lawyers go to law school because we have this passion for wanting to help and change the world, whatever the case may be. But then you graduate with all this debt, and you kind of are forced to just work and not necessarily be able to focus on other things because you have to pay your debt. So that's obviously a huge issue. I think another big thing is, oh, sorry, did you want to say something?
No, I was just going to ask you about the debt and what your situation. I mean, I don't need your numbers or anything, but that's something that you're dealing with, and how did you manage that? Because I'm sure that when you were making those transitions, it was always kind of up in the air when you start your own firm.
Right. So it is something that's there. It's, when I first graduated, it was something I thought about pretty often. Not that I don't think about it anymore. It's definitely there. It's still looming over my head, and I feel the weight of it, but it's not something I think about every single day, because I know the debt's going to be there. It's going to be there for a little while. I think I'm just convinced that I'm going to build a business that is hopefully going to it's going to bring in a sufficient amount of income to pay it off. So I'm just trying not to think about it. It's going to be there. I went on income-based repayment because I feel like that kind of helps manage the payments. But yeah, no, I try not to think about it because it's there and there's no point in thinking about it every single day.
Yeah. And I really love that. I think people, regardless of what your strategy is, you need to have a strategy when it comes to your debt. Just really briefly, could you just touch on the income-based repayment process or how you got on that and what it is, just so people know what you're referring to?
Yeah, sure. And hopefully I can explain this well because I'm not that learned in student loans. But basically there are different plans that, well, I guess it depends on if you have federal loans or private loans, but I have federal ones. You can go on different kinds of plans that help you manage how much your payment is each month. So it's not necessarily just the standard payment. I think the standard is just the regular kind, and that's usually a very big number each month based on your income. But if you go on any of the income-based repayment plans, which I believe there are a few different kinds, the payment each month will be based, it's a percentage of your actual income. So if you're not making, so depending on how much you're making, that's how much you pay each month. So it helps you, it does extend the time period for which you have to repay it, but at least it manages it and reduces that amount each month. So it's a little bit more, it's all manageable.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And I think I'm actually talking to a financial planner on student loans shortly. Okay. So we'll go into that in more detail, but I think that that's a great option for people who want to pursue other things and can deal with the stress of paying it over a longer period of time. Because I know for some people that stress is more than they can bear, but if you can stomach it, it's definitely worth considering.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, go back.
I was going to say.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. No, go ahead.
I was just you said you had another theory for why you think lawyers stay in.
Yes. You're a good listener. Yeah. So I don't know if I would call it a theory, but another thing that I've really just noticed is how rigid and how formal the profession can be, and rightfully so. I mean, it's obviously based on hundreds of years of law and precedent and all that good stuff that we learn in law school. And I think that a lot of lawyers feel a little stifled and they feel like they can't really maneuver around the formalism of the profession, and and that's kind of what suppresses their creativity. And I'm actually exploring as we speak whether creativity can exist within the law, or if it's something lawyers have to turn outwards for.
You can't see me. I'm beaming because I just started reading Brene Brown's Daring Greatly last night.
Ooh, nice. Okay.
And literally one of the things she said last night was that an inability to fail stifles all creativity.
Yes.
And so workplaces in which perfection is expected are ones in which people can't grow. And I was like, whoa.
She must be talking about lawyers.
I was like, oh my God. Like, what does that even mean for like law firms where you're just judged so harshly? And she was talking about shame and how, cultures in which shame is a part of the culture and shame for making mistakes stifles creativity, stifles growth, and that, stifles confidence and all these things that don't allow you to become best possible and, employee that you could be, person you could be, parent, all those things, child. Every relationship is stifled by like a shame-based relationship. And so it's very interesting to me that you're saying that today, because I was literally thinking about that as I was going to bed last night. So I'm very excited that you agree, and I'm not the only one who thinks that.
No, and it's funny because I think a lot of people are actually talking about. Well, a lot of lawyers are now coming forward and talking about these kind of things. And you're right. There, aside from the shame aspect, it's just lawyers are, aside from being perfectionists, we're just, I don't know, we hold ourselves up on this pedestal and we feel like we are all knowing, or we have to be all knowing and have all the answers and put on this mask when we're talking to clients. And it's hard. It's very hard on our souls, not to make this a spiritual conversation, but it really makes it tough to just be a regular person when you're expected to know all the answers all the time. And it doesn't help that in law school, where a lot of law students are given the advice, and even young lawyers are told, you know what, just fake it till you make it. And to a certain extent, I get it. I get where they're trying to go with that, but it's hard. Like, you can't, if you don't know something, it's very hard to fake it. And then this whole imposter syndrome kicks in, and it's just a vicious cycle of not being able to be yourself as a lawyer. And I think that's what affects everything.
Yeah, no, I could, like, all of those things. Agree.
Yeah, right? It's
All that.
and that's the beauty of being able to talk about it, because there are others who are still there are lawyers out there who work at a firm where maybe they feel like they can't speak up or connect with a colleague and talk about this kind of stuff. So I love that you're talking about it on your podcast, because hopefully people will find it and feel like, yeah, you can talk about it. It's happening, and hopefully we can start changing it, because it's not good. If lawyers are leaving the profession for this reason, for the reason that they can't be creative, that's not a good thing.
And the other thing about the law is there is a creative aspect to it. And I kind of forgot about that, because when you serve certain types of clients and the work becomes so commoditized and it's kind of perfecting around the edges, you're not really creating new solutions. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the work you do is kind of, you're doing deal work, but it's the same deal you did last year with just new clients, and you're kind of negotiating the same 4 points. I don't know if you worked, but that's
right.
Kind of big law can get that way.
Okay.
And when you're serving smaller clients, which is kind of what in my pro bono capacity and kind of talking, just now I talk to a lot more people in the creative entrepreneur space, just in what I'm doing podcasting. There is a creative aspect to the law. And as a junior associate, you don't necessarily get to see it.
Right.
Because the partners and the more senior associates are working on the creative aspects. But I wonder how people can get to that level and still be creative if they haven't been taught to be for years and years.
Yeah, right. That's what it is. I mean, this is probably going to spiral into a bigger conversation about just legal education reform. But yeah, no, you're right. That's where, I mean, I've heard a lot of my friends say that they felt very creative, or they were creatives before they went to law school, and law school kind of killed that. So, so perhaps there's something there. I think that needs to be addressed at an earlier time in law school.
Yeah, so we could spiral down that road forever.
Yeah.
I really want to get back to what you do with social media, because I think that's so interesting. And it's really one of the things that a lot of people have asked me is, as a lawyer, how can you start a podcast? How can you be on Facebook? Aren't you worried? And for me, I feel like as a lawyer, how can you not be?
Yeah.
Right. I would love to know your perspective and what you're seeing as you work with clients.
Yes. Well, I love your attitude about that. So I think there are just too many CLEs out there that are scaring lawyers out of using social media. Because every time I go to a lawyer conference and I see the title for a CLE and it has something to do with social media, I get excited, because I'm like, okay, finally, we're talking about this. They're going to teach us how to use it. And then I go and it's always about the ethical rules and what not to do. But no one's ever talking about what to do. So you're right. Social media is not a big, scary place to be for lawyers, right? And you're right. You have to be on there nowadays, because if you don't exist online, and social media is part of that, then it's almost like you don't exist at all, right? Because that's where clients are going to look for you. But social media, I feel like there are different ways to approach it or look at it. And some people see it, or some lawyers see it as just a place to push out your information. So if you write an article, to just post it there, or to brag about your latest settlement. But I really see it as a tool for it's another way to network, essentially, right? It's just another tool for engagement and communication with not just potential clients, but with other lawyers. That's how I tend to use it. I mean, I love social media because it's just a great way to connect with quote unquote influencers in the legal profession. So those big time lawyers that you want to get close to, or you want to get to know, or you want to follow and learn from. And then, of course, like I said, just the engagement aspect of it. I mean, a lot of the strong friendships that I have right now, or I guess great friendships that I have right now with other lawyers who are across the US and people I've never even met in person, but we're so close, is because of social media. It's because I talk to them on Snapchat, or we connect on Twitter every so often. So it really does bring lawyers together.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I actually recently went to I went to FinCon, which I think I spoke to you about.
Oh, nice.
And it's like a social media conference mostly, but it's for financial planners, because I'm kind of a finance nerd. And I met so many lawyers there who are doing such interesting things. Mm-hmm. And it's just was fascinating to me to see them leveraging social media and what they're doing, and like representing, like lawyers who represent influencers. Like, obviously that makes sense.
Yeah.
But for that to be your niche is like, I would have never thought of that.
Right. Exactly. And it's just, we're told that we know that networking is important. And I think that a lot of people don't see the opportunities that are presented through social media as a way to network online as well, and just kind of grow your community.
And so what do you think that a young associate who's been told that they shouldn't be on social media, they should be terrified of social media, what should they do to start, what are the best platforms do you think for your professional development or professional networking?
Well, I feel like if a young lawyer works at a firm that's scaring them out of social media, they should just run away as fast as they can if they can. What can they do to start? Well, okay, so I guess it's a little bit tough for young associates who are working at a firm if their firm is outright banning it, but I really doubt a firm is going to full on just say, don't be on social media. Hopefully the firm is a little bit encouraging of their young associates to go out and bring in business and build a network of their own. But I think the best place to start is really depending on where your potential client exists, essentially. Where do they hang out online? So I know it's very easy to tell lawyers be on LinkedIn, which, okay, fine, you should be on LinkedIn because it's a professional network. But if you're really aiming to connect with the right kind of client, you should just go where they are. So if you do represent influencers, or that's who you want to represent, that's who you want to work with, then you more than likely want to go on YouTube, right? Or on Instagram. I think a safe platform to be on is obviously Facebook, because that's the largest, that's where most people are. But really just find where your people are, the clients you want to connect with, the other lawyers you want to connect with, and be there, join that conversation.
So what do you say to an associate who says, I don't know who I want? Because I'm telling you, lawyers don't know what they want.
Yeah.
So, I'm just thinking of myself. If you had told me 3 years ago, be where the people you want to represent or want to work with are, I would have been like, I don't know what that means.
Okay.
How do you kind of talk them through that? And what's the process of figuring out, where your passions lie? Or I don't know if that's beyond the scope of what you do, but.
No, it's not. I don't know if it is or isn't, but here's the thing. I don't know. It's tough because I know people want an exact formula, or they want to be told where to be. But after having
lawyers right, to be told exactly what to do.
Right. Like, just tell me where to go and I'll go do it. No, honestly, it's not going to feel good as an answer, but you really just have to test these things out. So if you don't know which platform you want to be on, or you don't know what practice area you want to pursue, or you just don't know anything, then just test it out. Just start playing around. Just hop on Instagram, hop on Facebook. Just join the conversations that are happening and see what sparks your interest, right? If you find yourself gravitating more towards a certain platform, then be there if you enjoy it more. If you find yourself connecting with a certain type of client, let's say you want to work with female entrepreneurs, or you think you want to work with them, then join a Facebook group with them, start talking and see if this is something you're drawn to, and if you feel like you can really provide value and help, then that's where you want to be. But it's almost like trial and error, really, because I started off on a lot of platforms that I thought I had to be on, excuse me, and then after a while I wasn't enjoying it. I hopped off and I joined another platform. No big deal. You can test these things out. You're not bound to them forever.
I love that answer, because I think that that's right. And I think that's how I feel. And I think lawyers overthink it sometimes,
yeah,
because you think there's a way it's supposed to be done.
Right.
And you think there's all the shoulds around being a lawyer and what's quote unquote professional and what quote unquote clients look like. And clients hide in the most unexpected places.
That's true.
And everybody needs a lawyer. Like, every single person in their lifetime should work with a lawyer.
Yeah.
And it just depends on what capacity you want to serve people.
Exactly.
So I really love that. And I think that more lawyers should be getting out there and thinking strategically about their network, because it's so easy to network now. Like, networking is not going to, stuffy cocktail parties that are held by like some organization anymore. Networking is happening every day online, and you can do it with people all over the world who you're interested with and just engage them at their level.
Right. And and the thing is, I think as a new lawyer, that thought is maybe it could be a little bit scary, because You're right. We're just afraid of what we're going to look like and how our reputation, are we going to ruin our reputation if we're a little bit too casual online? And it's something a lot of young lawyers and law students ask me. And to be honest, I feel like if you're a casual person in real life, then that's how you're going to be online. And that's how it should be online, because your online persona is exactly who you are. It's a reflection of who you are in person. So if you're a certain way in person, that's how you're going to be online. And that's what clients want to see. That's what they want to connect with, your real personality. So does that mean go and show or go and post a picture of every weekend party that you go to because that's who you are? No, of course not. Obviously, you need to be aware of what you're posting or what you're saying on Twitter, for example. But show personality, because that's really what clients want to connect with nowadays, right? They want to see, and I'm going to use a buzzword. They want to see your authentic self.
I was waiting for it.
It's there's just no way around it. It's a good word, but yeah, it's very buzzwordy.
Yeah.
But it's true. Clients want to see that. They want to know that you're competent, but also that you're a human, that you're not a robot, and you're actually going to care for them.
Yeah, and it's so different the way law is being practiced. I think when you think about it on like the one-on-one, like person-to-person terms, because yes, there is a way of law being practiced amongst people on golf course and tennis courts, and that's what they like to do. So that's what they're doing. And you don't have to like that, and you don't have to do it that way. And I think the thing people stumble over is trying to make how they want to be fit with these ideas of how they think they should be.
Yeah.
And along the same lines of what you were saying about posting all your photos of partying, like at some point also, like, are you really the type of person who should be posting all your photos on Facebook? Do you know what I mean? Like beyond professionalism, like if you're 35 or however old or 30 and still posting, like maybe you should reassess personally
your life. Yeah.
Your choices. Not to make judgments, but like
right.
And if you assess that that's what you want to do, then there's, I'm sure, a client out there who will be grateful for your ability to maintain that lifestyle. But there's someone for everyone.
Funny. Right, exactly. And you know what? In general, all this stuff becomes a little bit easier the more you do it. As in the more you're on social media, the easier it becomes for you to be natural and naturally connect with people. But I think the problem is getting started. Getting people to get started is the hurdle. But once they actually get started, it gets better.
And how long would you suggest someone try out a platform before they kind of give up on it if they're not getting engagement or not feeling like they're connecting?
Let's see. I honestly don't know. I guess it's going to vary. I think one of two things will happen first. Either you, as the lawyer, will naturally not want to. Maybe you'll realize you're not enjoying it, and you feel like it's a burden. It's something you have to be on. You have to post a certain amount of times a day, and when it becomes something you have to do as opposed to what you want to do, I think that's one indication. Another one is if you're just not seeing any kind of engagement. So you're posting regularly and no one's really commenting. If you're reaching out to people on that platform and no one's really responding. If you're putting out valuable content and again, no one's really biting, I think that's probably another good indication that perhaps it's time to shift, or maybe who you thought was on there, maybe the client you thought was there isn't really there.
That's fantastic. I think that it's going to be, and I mean, no, I want to hear what you think. What do you think is going to be the future of how law firms are leveraging social media? Do you think, do you work with mostly firms, or are you working mostly with individual lawyers at this point?
So at this point, it's mostly individual lawyers.
Okay.
Only because solo practitioners tend to have a little bit more leeway and more room for creativity. But I definitely want to work with firms as well, of all sizes, because I think it can be helpful. The future of how they're going to leverage it. I think the fear around being on social media is going to decrease a little bit. I think the ethical rules might eventually be changed to reflect what communication really looks like nowadays. I would hope that more law firms and lawyers just get on social media, just exist and do it the right way, as in not just brag about themselves, because I think a lot of lawyers and law firms tend to get a little braggy. There you go, on social media, but really make it focus more on the client, not on them. So how is it that they can help the client? What valuable information and insight and expertise do they have, the law firm or the lawyers have, that will help, as opposed to here's what we've done, here's how much we can win, that kind of stuff. So hopefully they just start using it the right way.
Yeah. And I don't know if you're a fan of Gary Vee, but
yes, I love him. I know, right?
But the whole idea of you want to just be creating content, right? Like you want to establish yourself as an expert and as somebody who's just giving away so much because you were capable of creating so much content. Mm-hmm. No, go ahead.
Oh, sorry to cut you off. And yeah, that's the best part. Lawyers have so much content right in their heads, right? We have so much to give, and we know so much about the laws, obviously, well, hopefully, and just about business related stuff. We just have a lot of knowledge. It's just learning how to strategically put it out into the world in order to attract the right kind of client that becomes the challenge. But no, it's all there. We already have it in our heads. We have stuff to offer. Even if you're a new lawyer and you think that you have you have nothing to offer because you don't know enough just yet, you do. You just learned it in law school, and that's sufficient to be able to use the right kind of words to connect with clients.
Yeah, and I think the nice thing about our profession, it's not like being a doctor, but in some ways, even when you're putting out content, it's often still not enough for the client to do it on their own. Because I think that's one of the things that people are afraid of, is that they're going to put the content out there and then the client's not going to come to them because they'll be able to, file the patent on
just
their
get it for free, right?
Yeah. And I don't think that clients actually feel comfortable, especially when they're in a sticky situation, to just act on their own behalf. And if they do, then that's fine, and not all clients are going to know that they need a lawyer, but the good clients and the clients that you are really looking for who know the value of your work are. And so you shouldn't be afraid to give it away because you're afraid they're not going to come.
Right, exactly. No, that's something that I thought about when I started blogging, because I had a blog about 2 years ago. And I thought, you know what, if I'm putting all this information out for free about when you need to file a trademark or when you need a contract, that kind of stuff, are potential clients not going to want to hire me because I just gave them all the information. And you're right. Some clients probably won't. I mean, some of them will just do it on their own, and maybe they'll do it right. Maybe they'll mess up. Who knows? But the right kind of client will see how helpful you've been already as a lawyer. I mean, without having even met you, they read your article, they read your blog and saw that you've helped them already. If they know better, they will reach out to you and just have you do it because you've already helped them so much. So they already feel like they're connected to you somehow.
Yeah, I think that's really fantastic. I would actually like to ask you, since we seem to have so much overlap in what we like and the people that we're following and reading, what have really been books or podcasts or other, content that you've consumed that's been really helpful on your journey?
So in terms of podcasts, I'll start there because that's what I love.
I love podcasts.
Right? Hence why we both have one. So I actually started off listening to a lot of business related podcasts. So Smart Passive Income by Pat Flynn.
You know how I feel about him since we've
right. We definitely do. I don't want to say we run in the same circles, but we love the same people. We admire the same people. How about that? And I mean, who doesn't want passive income? But it's something I'm still working on.
Yep.
I've yet to actually do. But there's another one called Biz Chicks by Natalie.
I love Natalie. She's fantastic. I went to dinner with her at FinCon, and
so she was there.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, yeah. So her podcast is all about just female entrepreneurs and business related stuff for women. So it's great. And then, so that was in the beginning because I didn't want to just listen to lawyer podcasts so I don't get too influenced by what's out there, and I can kind of maintain my own podcast, kind of what we talked about earlier. But then I started listening to lawyer podcasts just to see, when I established mine, then I started listening to others just to see what's out there, what are people doing, and I just wanted to actually meet those lawyer podcasters because I knew there was a community out there, and it was a small one, and now it's growing, thankfully. So I started listening to JD Blogger by John Skiba. That's actually a really good one. Mm-hmm. I listened to The Enchanting Lawyer by Jacob Sapochnik, and just a lot of podcasts about law and business. And then I started exploring non-legal, non-business ones just for fun once I really started delving into podcasts. But in general, I just looked for as many free resources as possible. I think that's the key when you're a young lawyer. If you don't have the budget to spend on CLEs or books, there's so much free material out there, from podcasts to books at the local library. I would actually go every weekend and rent books from my public library because I didn't want to buy them, essentially, or at least not until I read them and thought I really wanted them. So there's a lot of free information out there, especially nowadays. So much free information online that you can just Google any subject area, any substantive legal area, and you can find a plethora of information on it. So just take advantage of that.
Yes, I think that more lawyers should be trying to develop themselves personally and professionally on their own time. I know a lot of lawyers love their TV and they watch lots and lots of TV, and I have nothing against TV, but throw a book in there or a podcast every once in a while.
Yes, right? Especially if you're driving or doing the dishes when you can't watch TV. That's when you should consume the other kind.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start, especially if you're not sure what you want to do next. I think it's a great way to get exposed to new ideas and what other people are doing.
Mm-hmm.
So before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask you, I like to ask, what is the best advice? And I'm going to switch it up a little bit. What's the best advice that you didn't take that you wish you had that you would like to share with a young lawyer?
You know, I don't know if I dwell on that kind of stuff, or I don't know if I really give that stuff much thought, where I think back and I'm like, oh, I wish I took that advice. Or the only thing is the only thing I can think of is really start now, which I know sounds lame. Advice. But even when I was starting my blog back in 2014, and just even before I opened my own practice, everything, I gave everything so much thought that it really, had I just started a little bit sooner, that could have been an additional few months of having done the blog or opened the practice. But really just started, just not being hindered by the thought process, essentially. So don't take so much time just to think about things.
Yes.
Because we get stuck in that thinking phase where we never break out of it, because we're always thinking about what we want to do. We're always preparing to do what we want to do, or we're always reading up on what we want to do, and we never actually just start. So I think starting now, starting sooner. Or soon, starting soon, I should say.
I think that's great advice. I think analysis paralysis is something most people suffer from, but lawyers are particularly prone to it due to the way we work and think. And It can look like work because you're doing research, but it's really just procrastination.
Exactly.
So I think that that's great advice. And I hope that everybody out there does something today, right now. Like find a podcast, pick a book, just reach out to one person. It doesn't take that much time. Do it today. Mm-hmm. You have 15 minutes to pick something to do.
Yeah. Good advice.
So before I let you go, I would love to know, where can the listeners find you and learn more about you and what you're up to?
Sure. So you know what? I actually have a freebie that I'd love to offer your listeners, and it's related to branding and content creation. So if anyone's interested, it's called Speak Up, a guide to finding your voice, building your brand, and being heard. So if they want to pick that up, it's at bit.ly. So it's bit.ly/GET 622. So it's bit.ly/get622. And I'm sure you'll have it in the show notes.
Yep.
And I think the best way to connect with me right now is on Instagram and Snapchat. And they're both the same handle. So I'm going to go ahead and give them to you. And it's at Nic_Abboud. So NIC_ABBOUD. And I love being on those platforms. So that's probably the best way to reach out and just say hi.
That's great. And I will put all of that in the show notes so that people can get access to that if they're driving or doing the dishes.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for being on today. It was so great chatting with you.
Thank you for having me. And I loved speaking with you. I loved connecting. So thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you for joining me for the Happy Lawyer Project podcast. Please head over to my website, www.thehappylawyerproject.com, for more information from today's show. While you're there, I'd love it if you'd leave me your thoughts on the show. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or follow me on Instagram. If you've enjoyed the show, please share it with your friends. And don't forget to head over to iTunes to subscribe and review the show. As you know, each rating helps more listeners find the show and helps me get awesome guests on here for you guys. If there's anyone you'd like me to have on the show, or if you'd like to be on the show, head over to my website and let me know, or send me an email at Okema, OKEOMA, @thehappylawyerproject.com. A special thanks to everyone who's left a review, sent me an email, or reached out to me in any way. I appreciate you. Thank you again for spending this time with me, and if you would like to learn more about working in your gift and living your passion, head over to the website for a free gift. Until next time, bye!